The US spends more money yet ranks lower among other developed nations in terms of healthcare. I think it's time we put a change to that. Hi, I'm Christian Castillo, and today I'm going to be talking to you about why the US should implement universal healthcare. I'm going to be talking to you today about how healthcare is a basic human right. I'm also going to be talking to you about how universal healthcare can lower the overall cost of healthcare. And lastly, I'm going to be talking to you about how healthcare will lead to a more healthy society. So first, to start off with how healthcare is a basic human right. So in the United States, we regard rights very highly. We have a whole bill in our Constitution dedicated to rights. Among these rights, we don't find healthcare as one that's listed, but I strongly believe the Constitution would allow for one. For example, in the preamble, we say it right, and to promote the general welfare. This means to promote the general welfare of the population. And in order to do this, I feel like the US would have to implement universal healthcare in order to finally fulfill what the Constitution preamble states, and which is to promote the general welfare. Another section of the Constitution that seems to allude to something that the US could do in terms of healthcare is written in a line that says, all men have unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And in order for the US to uphold these rights, I believe that universal healthcare is needed. With universal healthcare, all can receive the healthcare they need in order to continue living and also to continue the pursuit of happiness in their lives. Another reason why healthcare can be seen as a basic human right is the general director of the World Health Organization, one of the biggest organizations in the world with 194 member states, has came out and said that healthcare is a basic human right. Flat out and simple. And as a third world country, as a developed country, I believe the US should strive in order to provide its citizens with something that many other countries see as a basic human right. Next, I'll explain to you how universal healthcare can lower the overall cost of healthcare. One of the reasons that universal health is brought up so often in the United States is that per capita, US citizens pay nearly double what other developed country citizens pay, and that includes those with a universal healthcare system. In terms of spending, the US and other nations, the US actually spends more. So those with the belief that a universal healthcare system will only cost more money, well, we're already paying more money and we're not seeing any benefits from it. We actually have lower rankings in healthcare than other nations. And one of the reasons that our healthcare is actually so high is that health hospitals, insurance companies, and pharmaceutical companies are ran as businesses. This means common business practices are going to be applied, common principles are going to be applied, so that leads to overcharging, squeezing for profit, and cutting of services in order to meet certain quotas or hit certain goal marks. According to example of this oversaturation, as reported by CNBC, is in general physicians. General physicians in America make an average of $218,000 a year in 2016, which is a double on the average of generalists in other countries, which ranges from actually 160,000 in countries like Sweden all the way up to 154,000 in countries like Germany. By adopting this healthcare system, the US will actually be able to run state-run hospitals, pharmaceutical companies, and insurance companies. This can help lower the cost of healthcare by running these as nonprofits. So in order to start reducing the overall cost of healthcare, the U.S. government would come in and start running these companies as nonprofits, overall lowering the cost of healthcare in the United States. One example of how the U.S. spends so much more money in things such as administrative costs in terms of healthcare are that, for example, U.S. doctors often spend 4 times as much as Canadians dealing with insurance companies, according to thebalance.com. This is just one way where we can see the oversaturation of prices and the overpricing of certain things. Lastly, we would know that companies will always try to increase profit and also cut costs, which morally is not something that we should be doing, I believe, with the lives and health of people. I feel that they should be entitled to the same health care regardless of anything, including money. So, insurance companies being controlled by the U.S. Would help eliminate some of the business practices. For example, the primary goal of insurance companies is right now to make more money than they spend or lose on insurance claims. So in order to do that, they offer less insurance, meaning many Americans are undercovered, or in order to reach a full coverage, they have to spend way too much money and they can't afford it. So they end up not getting it. Lastly, we're going to talk about how universal health care will increase the overall health of the U.S. society and also save lives. So right now in the U.S., one of the biggest killers actually is heart disease. Heart disease accounts for the biggest percentage in deaths in the U.S. And actually, according to the CDC, it has the highest kill rate, or it is the highest killer, and it also states that it can be prevented with preventative health care, which many don't receive due to lack of insurance. So giving Americans universal health care will finally allow the majority of Americans to undergo healthy eating and learning health conscious facts from doctors that, again, Americans visit less often. Also, according to the CIA, the U.S. also has the overall lowest life expectancy among developed nations. It ranks actually 41 overall. Countries that have implemented universal healthcare rank much higher. One example being Japan, which in that same chart ranks at number 2. So providing all with universal healthcare can increase their healthy living style and also promote more healthy life choices, leading to a longer life. Lastly, we're going to talk about something that's a big issue right now, which is the coronavirus. Right now, Johns Hopkins University has actually reported that the U.S. is the highest, a country with the highest amount of cases and also the highest new cases by day. I think right now is a imperative time that, given if the U.S. had universal health care, many Americans could actually feel less stressed out about possibly getting sick from COVID and having to pay huge expenses, which would save lives and also lead to a healthier society in the United States. So in conclusion, universal health care can overall lower the cost of health care. I think it should be given to all because it is a basic human right, and it could promote a healthier society and also increase life expectancy. So I think it's time we take a book out of our European partners and also our partners up north and implement universal health care in the United States. Thank you.